Hello. Today we continue the previous topic that we start with in the previous week with relative clauses. We come across the topic and we have taken the defining relative clauses. Today we continue with our topic with non-defining relative clauses. Let's start with a quick overview on the topic itself. What is a relative clause? We said that we can use relative clauses to give more information about a noun, whether it is a subject or an object. For example, the man gave me this book, and I can add the relative clause for this sentence and say the man who was speaking to you gave me this book, and in this situation I am giving extra information about the noun, which is the subject in this case. And I can add the relative clause after the object, as in she lives in Baghdad, she likes living in Baghdad, and I can say it with a relative clause and say she lives in Baghdad, which she likes. In the previous week we come across defining relative clauses and say that, and we have said that a defining relative clause tells which noun we are talking about and gives necessary information about it, whether it is the subject or the object of the sentence. For example, I respect the old man who lives next door. If I don't say who lives next door, then we don't know which old man I mean. Then the defining relative clauses are necessary in the sentence. Today we explain why do we have a non-defining relative clauses. Well, non-defining relative clauses gives us extra information about something or someone. We don't need this information to understand the sentence, but it adds for our information. For example, I live in Cairo, which is a crowded city. Everybody knows where Cairo is. It is the capital of Egypt. So, which is a crowded city is an additional information. We do not need it to know what Cairo is. Okay? We don't use that in non-defining relative clauses. So, we should put in our minds that the word or the relative pronoun that is not used in non-defining relative clauses. So, we either use which if the pronoun refers to a thing, or use who if it refers to a person. Also, we add the non-defining relative clauses after a comma, and we finish it with a comma. With defining relative clauses, we do not separate this relative clause with commas, but in non-defining relative clauses, we add commas, as we are going to notice in the following examples. Also, we can't drop the relative pronoun in this kind of clauses, even if the relative pronoun is the subject of the clause. We said earlier that when the relative pronoun is the subject of the relative clause, we can delete it. But in non-defining relative clauses, it's not possible. Well, we start with two kinds of relative clauses as we dealt with in defining relative clauses. We have clauses that comes after the subject, as in my boss. You notice that we have the comma here before and after the clause, while in defining relative clauses we do not have the commas. Okay, this is a hint that helps you to know which one is a defining and an undefining relative clauses. Well, my boss, who is very nice, lives in Manchester. Well, I know, and I can simply say my boss lives in Manchester. But adding the information of who is very nice is an extra unnecessary information, but I liked or I wanted to add it for the sentence. Another example, my sister, who I live with, knows a lot about cars. I can simply say my sister knows a lot about cars, but I added this extra information, and as long as it is an extra information, that's why I put it between commas, and it is a non-defining relative clause. It doesn't define who my sister is, because I know my sister that knows a lot about cars. But who I live with التي أعيش معها is extra information that the hearer or the listener doesn't need to know. My bicycle, which I've had for more than 10 years, is falling apart. I can say my bicycle is falling apart. دراجتي نستطيع أن نقول falling apart doesn't mean تسقط إلى أجزاء، وإنما معناها تتحطم أو تتقادم. Okay? Which I have had for more than 10 years. دراجتي التي هي لدي منذ 10 سنوات هي معلومة إضافية. أنا عرفت أن الدراجة تتهاوى أو تتقادم أو يعني نقدر نقول تصبح قديمة، لكن هذه معلومة إضافية. أوكي؟ unnecessary information أضفتها ربما لتجميل الكلام أو إلى آخره. So we move to the second type of clauses that comes after the object. We took the ones who come after the subject, gives extra information about the subject, while here I am giving extra information about the object. Yesterday I called our friend Julie, who lives in New York. Again, yesterday I called our friend Julie is very enough, but I give extra information and say who lives in New York. Okay? And you see that we also have the comma, and as long as we finish the sentence we put a full stop. The photographer called to the queen, who looked annoyed. So also the queen here is the object of the sentence, and it is clear. The sentence is clear, but I give extra information who looked annoyed about the queen. And we have the last example. Last week I bought a new computer which I don't like now. So I am giving extra information about the new computer that I bought, and as long as it is an extra information, that's why I put it after a comma. That's all for the non-defining relative clauses. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have understood the topic. You can watch the first part, which talks about the defining relative clauses, before you watch this one, in order to compare the two types of relative clauses and understand them in a better way. Thank you very much, and see you soon.